The day my husband found my private messages, it felt like the very foundation of our home cracked. He wasn't looking for it. A text notification had simply popped up on our shared tablet while he was checking the weather. What he found wasn't an illicit affair with a man, but something he considered far more unforgivable for a woman of my age. A casual, honest conversation with a woman my own age about a shared love for poetry and life. What followed was a complete unraveling of the life I had so carefully constructed. For 52 years, I had been the epitome of respectability, a devoted wife, a dedicated mother, and a beloved teacher. I was the person you'd see at the grocery store, always with a warm smile and a kind word. But inside, I was a woman who was slowly suffocating, living a life that was comfortable, but not truly my own. I walked into the kitchen to find him staring at the screen, a look of profound disbelief on his face, as if he were looking at a stranger. He didn't yell. My husband, Robert, a man who valued his reputation above all else, preferred to wield his disapproval like a scalpel. "Evelyn," he said, his voice low and tight, "what in God's name is this? Are you one of them?" The label, whispered as a hushed accusation, hung in the air like a vile curse. Then our son, Alex, now a grown man of 21, walked in. He looked from his father's tense face to mine, his own features settling into a cold mask of disappointment. "Mom, what's going on?" Robert didn't mince words. He held the tablet out, his hand shaking slightly. "Your mother is texting women like a teenage girl. I don't understand." His tone wasn't one of a heartbroken husband, but of a man deeply threatened and confused by a reality that contradicted his own. Alex's reaction was a direct reflection of his father's. He didn't shout. He just looked at me with a profound sadness, as if I had failed some fundamental test of character. "Mom, I don't get it. You're our mom. You're supposed to be—" He couldn't even finish the sentence, but I understood. I was supposed to be a pillar of consistency, a testament to the conventional life. My curiosity, my desires, my very being was an unacceptable deviation from the script they had written for me. In that moment, I realized the full weight of my marriage. It wasn't built on love, but on a carefully guarded image. My family wasn't upset that I had betrayed them. They were horrified that I had embarrassed them. My husband's shame wasn't about me. It was about his own reputation. And my son's disgust was about seeing his mother as a human being with desires, rather than the static, flawless figure he had always held in his mind. The shame I had carried for years suddenly began to feel different. It no longer felt like a weight I had to hide, but a fire that was burning away everything that was false. The silence that followed was suffocating, and as the moonlight streamed through the window, I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that I was not a woman in a crisis. I was a woman on the verge of a revolution. The profound, aching silence in the house was a physical weight. Robert and Alex had left for the day, and I was alone, surrounded by the ghosts of a life I no longer recognized as my own. The shame was still there, but it had curdled into something else, a cold, quiet fury. I had spent decades being the woman they expected me to be, the selfless wife, the ever-present mother, the pillar of a life that looked perfect from the outside. But their humiliation had shown me that their love was conditional, a prize to be earned by maintaining a facade. In that emptiness, I began to feel a profound sense of freedom. What was left to lose? They had already taken everything by revealing my deepest truth to themselves and seeing me as a stranger. I walked over to the shared tablet, the very device that had exposed my soul to them, and I opened it again. This time, there was no trembling in my hands, no furtive glances over my shoulder. There was only a quiet resolve. I navigated back to the forums and online communities. But now, my purpose was different. I was no longer a voyeur, a visitor in a foreign land. I was a pilgrim, searching for a place to belong. I looked at the profiles, at the kind eyes, the salt and pepper hair, and the topography of a lived life etched on every face. I saw women who looked not like flawless magazine models, but like good books, full of stories and wisdom and unexpected truths. One profile in particular caught my eye. Her name was Grace, and she was 58. Her profile picture showed her with a strong, confident smile, a woman who looked like she had seen things and was completely at ease with who she was. Her bio spoke of leaving a long marriage in her late 40s and finding joy in companionship and her newfound freedom. She talked about the liberation of being with women who valued her mind and her life experience over the number on her birth certificate. I read her words and felt an immediate sense of kinship. This wasn't about finding a date. This was about finding a lifeline. I sent her a message. It was short and to the point. I told her I was new to this and that her profile gave me a sense of courage I didn't know I had. She responded within minutes. Her words were gentle but firm. It takes a different kind of bravery to be a woman who knows what she wants. There's a whole community of us. You're not alone. I read her words over and over, and a wave of relief washed over me so strong that I had to sit down. We started a conversation that lasted for days, spilling into late nights after my husband had gone to bed. I told her about my family, about the humiliation, about how my desire had been framed as a sickness. Grace listened, and she understood. She told me she had gone through a similar ordeal and that the greatest lesson she learned was that you can't build your life on someone else's idea of who you should be. She spoke about the quiet, unspoken shame that women our age often carry and how she found solace in a community of women who refused to let that shame define them. Her words were a balm to my soul, a validation I had been starved of for my entire adult life. She wasn't just a stranger on the internet. She was a beacon, a living, breathing testament to the idea that there was a different way to live. She told me that what I felt was not a crisis, but a kind of homecoming, a profound recognition of a truth that had been buried for too long. And after a week of intense, honest dialogue, Grace asked a question that I knew would change everything. There's a group of us that meets once a month. We just talk, share, and support each other. How about you come out for a coffee? My treat. The coffee shop was warm and smelled of cinnamon and roasted beans. A cozy space that felt miles away from the chilly silence of my own home. I was 10 minutes early, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs, convinced I had made a mistake. And then Grace walked in, her smile exactly as I had seen it in her photo, warm, genuine, and completely at ease. She wasn't alone. She introduced me to a group of women who had already gathered, their faces a beautiful tapestry of ages and experiences. There was Julia, in her late 70s, with a mischievous glint in her eyes and a quick, witty laugh. There was a woman my own age, Maria, who was a lawyer and looked like she carried the weight of the world on her shoulders, just like I did. And there was a woman who couldn't have been older than 25, a young, vibrant artist with a bright, open face. There was no awkwardness, no pretense. Grace simply began a conversation, and the other women jumped in, their stories flowing with an honest, easy rhythm that I hadn't heard in years. They talked about everything. The internal struggle of finding your truth later in life, the fear of coming out, the pressure to conform to a role that felt like a costume. For the first time, I heard other women admit to being attracted to women with a history written on their faces, women with distinguished gray hair and a confidence that comes from years of self-discovery. They weren't looking for a project or a boy to raise. They were looking for women who were secure in their own lives, women who had seen things and had the maturity to be truly present. The young artist spoke about her attraction to older women with a surprising eloquence, saying that she found their maturity and self-acceptance to be an antidote to the endless games and insecurities of her peers. She felt at ease, able to have non-judgmental fun, and explore her desires freely. The air in the room was electric with validation. It was as if we were speaking a secret language that only we understood. They weren't judging me. They were reflecting my own hidden truths back to me. Maria, the lawyer, spoke of the quiet, reassuring power she felt when a more experienced woman would surrender to her hands, to her lips. She described the deep, resident satisfaction of hearing the exhaustion in her breath and feeling the symbol of a life lived fully tremble as she was stroked to complete surrender. I felt a pang of profound understanding. I had been attracted to the very same thing, not out of dominance, but out of a shared, reciprocal pleasure. The conversation wasn't crude. It was honest, empowering, and deeply spiritual. I looked at these women, this gathering of strangers who felt more like family than the people I had lived with for decades. I had spent so long building a life that looked perfect from the outside, but it was sterile and hollow. Here, surrounded by their laughter and the quiet clinking of coffee cups, I felt a warmth, a sense of belonging that was both new and instantly familiar. It was here, in the small, sunlit cafe, that I found my true tribe. A sisterhood of women who saw that a person's value wasn't determined by a number on a driver's license, but their spirit and their courage. The judgmental feelings were out of the bag and left with pure, unadulterated understanding. And as the hours passed, the conversations shifted, taking a more personal turn. We began to share stories of our intimate lives, and I felt a new sense of possibility open up before me. My journey of self-discovery, I realized, was far from over. It was just beginning. The stories shared in the coffee shop felt like a roadmap, and with my new tribe of women as my guides, I began my own journey. I had spent so long building a life that was about duty and performance, where intimacy felt like a sterile, scheduled event. Now I was stepping into a world where it was about honesty and connection. With the quiet encouragement of Grace, I reached out to a woman named Beatrice, a retired librarian in her late 60s. Our online conversations had been full of thoughtful debate and easy laughter, and when we finally met, the years between us melted away. My first physical encounter was not a frantic, fumbling act, but a slow, tender exploration. It was nothing like the dutiful intimacy I had known for decades. With Beatrice, it was about a mutual, deliberate presence. I found myself drawn to the topography of her body, the landscape of a life fully lived. The soft curves that told a story of a comfortable, settled existence felt like a place of profound security. My touch wasn't a performance, it was a conversation. With my hands on her skin, I felt a deep sense of connection, a silent understanding that went beyond words. There was a raw, uninhibited joy in our intimacy that was both new and instantly familiar, a world away from the stale, passionless acts of my marriage. It was in her maturity, her quiet, confident way of giving and receiving pleasure, that I found a freedom I hadn't known I was missing. I discovered that the vitality of older women wasn't just a fantasy, it was a profound reality. Their drive, their stamina, their knowing hands. It was all a testament to a life force that doesn't diminish with a number. With every touch, every glance, I was learning that attraction isn't about the fleeting perfection of youth, but the enduring beauty of a life well lived. I couldn't say I enjoyed myself the same way with men. With them, it was often about proving something, about a fragile ego that needed constant validation. With women like Beatrice, it was about a shared comfort and mutual appreciation. The judgmental feelings were out of the bag and left behind with the pure fun of two people exploring their desires without shame. I loved the feeling of her mature skin against mine, the way she would lean in close to whisper in my ear, and hearing her reach orgasm in a deep, guttural sound that was pure harmony. What I had found was more than just physical pleasure. It was an emotional and spiritual reclamation. This new tribe, the supportive sisterhood from the coffee shop, and the women I connected with, validated me in a way my family never had. I was no longer a woman defined by my age or my role as a wife and mother. I was a woman defined by her courage, her truth, and her unwavering belief in her own worth. I had spent years in a life that looked perfect but was sterile. Now, every touch, every glance, every laugh was real. In these moments, I knew with a certainty that settled deep in my bones that I had lost one family, but I had found my true tribe. In the end, I didn't lose my family. I lost a version of my family that was built on a lie, a carefully constructed illusion of who I was supposed to be. And what I found in its place was a truth so profound and a community so accepting that it changed the very nature of my existence. I went from a woman who was tragically alone in a house full of people to a woman who felt more at home in a single shared glance with a group of friends than I ever had in my entire life. My humiliation was a gift. It was a violent, painful, and necessary act that shattered the walls of a life I could no longer stand to live. I was forced to face the truth of who I was, and in doing so, I found a freedom I didn't know was possible. I found that a woman's worth isn't about her age or her ability to fit into a mold. It's about her ability to be true to herself. I found that love isn't about age or looks, it's about connection, about finding the right woman to click with, to share a laugh with, and to explore your most intimate desires with. I discovered that the very things my old life saw as flaws, the lived-in bodies, the graying hair, the wisdom of the years, were the very things that held so much beauty and reassurance for me. I found that the vitality of older women wasn't just a fantasy, it was a profound reality. It was an enduring life force I had been starved of for so long. I found women who didn't just tolerate my desires, but who celebrated them. Women who saw my honesty as a strength, not a perversion. So, if you're out there, carrying a secret, feeling like an outsider in your own life, know this: your tribe is waiting for you. It might be a group of women in a coffee shop or a single person on the other end of an honest conversation. But it's a place where you can leave the judgment out of the bag and feel pure joy and acceptance. My husband and son gave me a choice: live with their humiliation or find my truth. And as painful as that choice was, it was the only one that led me to a place where I could finally feel whole. My tribe is more than just friends. They are my family. Maybe the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. And your tribe is just the community that helps you build it. What does your journey look like?